Welcome to the video that is a walkthrough on how you answer an interpretation question, which will come up at the end of the Germany paper, and then a slightly different wording of it will come up at the end of the Elizabeth paper as well. But the premise for both questions is still the same. So you will be given a person's opinion about, in the case of Germany, it'd be about the Germany paper, and if it was about Elizabeth, it'd be something to do with Elizabeth. And then you are asked how far you agree with the interpretation. So I recommend you take about 4 paragraphs to answer this question. You could do these two here as 2 separate paragraphs and make it 5, it doesn't really matter. So for the first paragraph, you need to say what side does this person's opinion take? So what is their opinion about whatever is to do with Germany, and is there evidence to back this up? By providing evidence, you are hitting AO1. So the more detailed your facts can be and your more specific your examples can be that prove that actually this is a valid interpretation because there is evidence that proves that it's right, the more likely you are to get a higher grade. Paragraph 2 is your basic analysis, so find at least one good, one bad, if not more, things about the person, where the interpretation comes from, like a book and the title of the book and the date and all that. Just remember when you're giving a positive and a negative, you have to say why those are good and why that makes the source good or bad. And then paragraph 3 is the longer one where you need to kind of work harder in order to get higher for the AO4 marks. So you need to say, who would disagree with this person on the topic? What would their opinion be? So you need to give some examples to back them up. And to get the higher band, why have they got this opinion? What has influenced their opinion? There are many things that can influence a person's opinion that we've discussed previously. So it could be things like your nationality, your gender, your age, your job, your past experience. These can be things that influence your opinion. So do you remember how we said that one person might say that Wales is the best rugby team, and one person might say England, and it's their nationality is affecting their opinion. And then conclusion, you have to say if you agree after looking at everything, analysing it, saying who would disagree, what's your opinion. So this is a little planning sheet that we work through usually when we get given an interpretation. So here we're looking at paragraph 1. This is the analysis, so is this, and then that is who would disagree. I'm not going to get you to plan your conclusion, although I will talk through an example conclusion for this question. Okay, so this is the example question or the example interpretation that I've given you. This person says, the camps were only used to keep political prisoners, those that had used violence and chaos to endanger the glorious Third Reich. This is the opinion of Elschall, who was an SS soldier, speaking at his trial in 1950. So the first thing you have to think about is, what is this person's opinion? Well, he's talking about why people were in concentration camps, and he's saying that people were in concentration camps for political reasons, and if they'd used violence in order to protest against the government. My first sentence would be, this interpretation states that concentration or labour camps were only for prisoners who had actively gone against the Nazi Party, political prisoners. It also implies the prisoners had committed acts of violence, so you're essentially just putting that into your own words. Now we need to provide evidence to back this up. So if this person is saying there were only political prisoners in the concentration camps, is there evidence to back it up? Yes. Who would have been the main political group that rebelled against Hitler that he would have wanted to lock away? That's right, the Communist Party. So there would have been a lot of communists in the concentration camps. Other political parties, obviously. They were the only ones that went against Hitler. And it's true, at first, there were only political prisoners there. So the exam paper will never give you an opinion that you can't back up with hard, cold facts. Right, let's look at how good and trustworthy the author is. So I've picked the fact that he's an SS soldier is a weakness. So I've said the author is an SS soldier. Why does that make this weak? He's obviously going to be covering his tracks to make him look good. So only give positive information, won't he? Because it's the SS soldiers that ran the camps. He doesn't want to look bad at his trial. The fact that he's at his trial, I've said, should really be a positive. Under oath to speak the truth. And then said in 1950, no longer threatened by Hitler's punishment, so he can be honest. Okay, so then you kind of step back and you think, okay, well, he was there, and he may not be trustworthy because he's probably only saying that, oh no, they deserve to be in the camps because they were violent themselves, but because he's an SS soldier, he's probably covering his tracks. So, do you believe an SS soldier even though they are under oath at a trial? Okay, now the really big bit is what might other people say. Now, we like to link it to historians. If you can be really specific, all the better. So, obviously, the main thing we think about when we think about concentration camps is that there were a lot of Jewish prisoners there now. They hadn't committed any political sabotage or, uprising or anything like that. So, you can't really say that they deserved to be there. Were they violent? No, acts of violence were committed against them. So, can disagree there. So in terms of historian, I mean, this isn't a historian, so you could literally say any historian would disagree because they'd have done their research, but I've said a historian specialising in Jewish history, and you could also go for a British historian because they wouldn't be they would have the full picture, wouldn't be influenced. So why would they say it? Would have researched Jewish prisoners. So they would have reasons why Jewish prisoners were there, and probably not for violent acts or, political uprisings. And a British historian, like we said, wouldn't be influenced, by their past crimes or being punished or being made to look bad, or German propaganda. So there we go. So then once you've done that, you kind of take a step back and you think to yourself, well, there is evidence to back up what this person is saying. There are some good and bad points. I can think that he may be telling the truth. However, I can't ignore what his job was and his connection to concentration camps. And obviously, there are plenty of established historians who are far more trustworthy than an SS soldier. So I've just written the conclusion. And because that's, everything else is pretty straightforward, that's the bit that you might struggle with. And again, a really strong conclusion can get you the higher band marks. Okay, so what I get asked about a lot is when it talks about the great historical debate around the issue. So the great historical debate bit, I'd usually start my conclusion with that. So I've highlighted that in yellow for you. So I'll just read through the conclusion for you. So, overall, I agree with the interpretation to a certain extent. That's probably a good way to start your conclusion. The debate around concentration camps is if they were genuinely prisons or had always been intended to enable the murder of Jews. So that's kind of the debate that Scholl is making us think about. He'll say, no, they were always prisons, and somebody else would say, hang on, they were later used as death camps, so is that true? Here's my opinion. I agree with Scholl that the camps did have many political prisoners who had committed acts of violence, but I do not agree that the camp was only used in that way. So that's my opinion, and now I'm going to kind of look at, I've said why I have that opinion, and now I want to also think about what I don't trust about the interpretation that was given to me. So Scholl is only focusing on how camps were initially used in order to divert blame on himself, on the acts he likely committed towards prisoners, many of whom were not there for political reasons. So I've said I agree to a certain extent because half of what he's saying is true, but he's missed out kind of the other part of what concentration camps were used for, and I don't really trust him because he's obviously trying to cover up his tracks. So there we go. To a certain extent, historical debate, my opinion, and the reasons why I have that opinion. So I hope that helps. I'll finish with kind of like a picture of that. Again, one of the big essay questions at the end of the paper, so if you can practice this, there are loads of example interpretations that I've created for you that you could use to practice, and the benefit is if you can get the hang of it for Germany, hopefully you can get the hang of it for Elizabeth, and it'll be a nice, easy 19 marks for you to pick up, which again is nearly half the marks on the paper. So have a go at doing these ones, keep watching this video, keep practicing, and good luck.